So in order to do these wonderful ladies some justice, I am going to ask them to introduce themselves, but I do want to start by saying how excited I am for you to hear all about their journeys, their leadership, their empowerment, their encouragement to so many people and how they've paid it forward in their lifetime and will continue to do so in their communities, in their careers, and in their personal lives as well. Melba, you want to start?
Good morning, ladies. Good morning. And gentlemen, I'm so sorry. So I'm from Harlem, where there are over 300 Baptist churches, and we have something called call and response. So when I say good morning, ladies, you gotta act like you hear me. Good morning! There we go, just make me feel at home. Thank you so much. My name is Melba Wilson, and as I like to say, I'm born and bred and buttered. Toast, Melba. Okay, no, wrong card. Too early, right? One bred and buttered in the village of Harlem. Harriet Tubman said, every dream begins with a dreamer. That is and was me. I had a dream of entering this crazy industry called the food and beverage industry. I was told, you're black. Yeah, I know that. You're female. I know that too. And you're from Harlem? It's never going to happen. The things that people thought were liabilities, to me, were my assets. Those are the things that fueled me. And those were part of the reason that I would. Started as a cashier, literally, in the industry. So when you say started from the bottom, now you're here, you will see a picture of me. A person that had a dream, saved up my money under my mattress, was working at 123 William Street, General Adjustment Bureau at the time. Got on a flight, the flight attendant said, in case of an emergency, put on your mask first. I'd heard this so many times before. On this day, it resonated with me. I said, let me see how much money I've saved under my mattress, because that's what my mama did. That's what my grandmama did, so that's what I did. Started counting, and I had amassed a small fortune, a little bit over $312,000. I now bank at one revenue. There was a space on the corner of 114th Street, which just happened to be one of the most notorious drug blocks in Harlem. And I wanted to create change. And I figured I could talk about it or be about it. Took the money, called the number, rented out the space. The rest is history. We serve, and I say we, even though I have no partners or no investors, it's just me. We serve well over between 500 and 900 people a day. It's been 18 years. We employ 54 people just in that one location. I now have a space in Central Park and opening up in Grand Central, and I have a catering business that I've had for 18 years. The most important part of all of that is the fact that I'm able to change mindsets. I'm able to let boys and girls know that if me, this little red engine that everybody counted out, can, you can too. If I can, so can you. So it's not about my wealth comes from what I do in my community. In lieu of advertising, I don't advertise. I take my advertising budget and I invest it back into my community. So what do I mean by that? During COVID, and I've been doing that for 18 years, but during COVID, we personally fed over 200,000 people from our pockets. And that's what we do on a regular basis. We dedicate our lives and our food to organizations that cannot afford it, to domestic violence, to children's programs, and to senior programs. So I'm excited to be here amongst these amazing women and amongst you today, because women really are at the wheel. Thank you.
Thanks for warming up the room. So my journey started when I was 14 years old. My dad was a serial entrepreneur, and I didn't know what that meant at the time. I just thought he liked the big checks that he got when he opened a business and he got to flip the ribbon. And so I was like, dang. But I had these ideas, and so I boldly went to him one morning and I said, Dad, I have all these ideas on how to help your pizza business be better. And I had no idea what the outcome of that conversation was. It was just me telling him what I thought. And what he did was he gave me the reins to run the place. And I was like, oh, that was unexpected, but okay. And he then said, and in addition to that, your 2 older brothers are going to report to you. And I was like, whoa. So there's this moment of massive fear and massive excitement. But in the middle was this weird confidence that I didn't know where it came from. But I was like, all those ideas were my ideas. I knew I could do them. So we did. And we ran the business successfully to sell it. Helped us pay for college, so I went on to get a career or did a education in marketing, so that was my degree. And then fast forward 20 years, a good friend and first boss, what I'll call it, and a big mentor in my life who's here today, Jeff Snyder, called me and he said, I want to open a marketing agency. And I'm like, well, you have to bring me with you, of course. And he said, yes, that's why I'm calling. And we started Inspire Marketing in 2008, and it was that same moment of fear and excitement middled with the confidence, because we had worked together for almost 20 years, and every time we had a vision of like how we could do it different, or what would we do if we were in this situation and we were in charge. And so it was this great opportunity that Jeff gave, and today, so 15 years later from the inception of Inspira, we have over 450 employees, 3 offices, and we work with some of the world's biggest brands, Diageo, American Express, Pepsi, you name it. We're working with them from a consumer marketing perspective. Well, in halfway in that journey, so in 2016, we had an idea to incubate something else, and that's where I am today at Enthuse Marketing, which is a women-owned agency that is women-led, and we also created a foundation to help others because we knew we were really fortunate to have that experience of that agency kind of catapult us. We wanted to give back. So we created this nonprofit called the Enthuse Foundation. It started in 2018, where we really just invest in women. They bring us their business ideas, we help them, we mentor them, we help grow their businesses, all through the nonprofit lens. So when you say give back, that's how we give back to our community. And we use our marketing voice to just get the word out. We have a big Shark Tank style pitch night that we invite these entrepreneurs to present. We have over 200 applicants, and we have to bring only 5 to the stage. But the way that I describe it is every one of those 200 people that applied has made it. They took that step to take it to the next level. And so we really just are passionate about putting that voice stronger and harder and out there and work for all of these women. And I appreciate being here to be able to talk about my journey and how we can help others. So that's me.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Good. I'm Sarah Espinosa. It's really a thrill to be here and to be alongside such kick-ass women and to see so many other kick-ass women in the room. This is fantastic. I serve as the Executive Director of the LCU Fund for Women's Education. We're a private nonprofit foundation here in New York City. Our focus is to provide housing support to low-income scholars so that they can focus on their studies and get that all-important college degree, because we know that that builds professional mobility, economic resilience, serves community, because women, in many respects, are the heart of the community. My story, my sister and I were raised by a single father in Eugene, Oregon, on sort of a bohemian farm. My dad was a social worker and a community organizer, and he also raised earthworms and rabbits. So he had a lot of side hustles going on. Moreover, he was an avid outdoorsman, and there is a sort of principle around engaging in outdoor activities, and that is that you leave the world a little bit better than when you found it, right? That, whether explicitly or implicitly, it was imprinted on me. And so it's not a surprise that I then, years later, obtained my sociology degree from the University of Oregon. Go Ducks. And began a career working as a social worker. My early days were spent working with pregnant and parenting teens, doing home-based family support program, family support services. I am nervous, you guys.
All good.
I'm just gonna work through it. It's a therapy session here. But no, my early career was really spent doing home-based family support programs, case management services, making sure that families have the resources that they need to feel empowered in their parenting. I did that for a few years and quickly realized that my skill set was more inclined towards being in sort of a management supervisory position. I think that I had some inherent leadership skills. I look back on it now. I'm not sure if I recognized it then. I think at that point I just liked to be bossy, or my husband would say that. But I moved into a very sort of focused career path around nonprofit management and obtained my certificate in nonprofit executive leadership from University of Washington's Graduate School of Social Work. And then really since then, my career has been spent working in nonprofit settings, wide-ranging experience, community-based organizations, local municipalities, state government. I worked for school district in Seattle for about 10 years. My husband and I moved from Seattle to New York State in 2005. Since then, I've had some interesting opportunities. Worked in the city of Newark for a long time. Ran an organization up in Albany that was really around empowering the youth serving workforce. And for the last 14 years, again, I've been with BLC Fund, and I'm looking forward to telling you a little bit more about the work that we do throughout our conversation today. But again, it's really a thrill to be with you, and I'm going to work through my nerves there real quickly. Pass it back to Stacey. Thank you.
Thank you. How inspiring are these women? I can't wait for you to hear even more. So, Melba, we'll start with you with our first question. What are some of the pivotal moments that are in your story that put you in a particular direction in your career, in your life? Anything come to mind?
Wow.
Which one?
Let's
Let's start with the first one you can think of.
Oh, wow. Well, growing up, there was a woman by the name of Ophelia DeVore Mitchell. It was in 1697 Broadway. She ran the first modeling school and finishing school for women of color. She was a very, very fair-skinned black woman, and she went to a Vogue modeling class. And she had been going to these classes every weekend. And one day, a brown-skinned girl walked in, and they said, "I'm sorry, we don't teach blacks." It was then that Ms. DeVore knew that they did not realize that she was a black woman. At 16 years old, she decided to start her own. And she opened the Ophelia DeVore Modeling School in the Edsel and Theater Building. And Ms. DeVore, when I was 9, I went to work for her. And I went to work for her because there were no child labor laws back then. I think. Yeah, right. But it was important for me because I just looked up to these women. And I wanted to be like them, and I wanted to be around them, and I knew that there was so much I could learn. So I'd hop on a train, get off on 53rd Street. I'm a little bit over 40, and if I'm more over 40, I'm not going to tell you. But I would get off on 53rd and Broadway and walk to the Edsel Theater, and that's where magic happened for me. Whether I was licking envelopes or folding papers, I was in the midst of women that encouraged and inspired me. And that's when I knew I could do anything. At 9 years old, Ms. DeVore had me reading books like Think and Grow Rich, The Power of Positive Thinking, Magic of the Mind. And that's when my life really, really changed. That was one moment, and then the other one was when I beat Bobby Flay. Really, really changed.
That was awesome. That changed my life as well.
Thank you. All right, Kim, let's go to you. What excites you? What energizes you?
This is gonna feel really self-serving, but when we get a new client, I love to hear about what makes them tick, what makes their business, and it's just like the wheels start spinning because I get so excited because I know we can help them and build a team around what they need, and I know we're gonna win them over in some capacity. Some clients are always like, "Oh, are you sure?" But it's like that new relationship. It's really fun. And then in addition to that, when a team member gets a win and they call you and they give you that "Hey, we had a great meeting," and it lights you up, and that's it helps fuel me and gives me my energy.
That's great. Okay, next, Sarah. Can you talk, I know you alluded to what your organization does. You want to take the opportunity and explain a little bit more about it?
Sure. So we have a really interesting organizational history. We were founded in 1858 by a group of philanthropic women that were connected at that point to the Episcopal Church. And they were concerned with the number of women that were coming into the city looking for employment that did not have access to safe and affordable housing. It's ironic that that still exists today, right? And so they started actually purchasing houses in and around Manhattan, and they were called at that point in time the Ladies Christian Union. And the Ladies Christian Union, interestingly enough, was the originating organization for the New York City's YWCA. So at some point in time, our founding mothers decided that there was going to be sort of a housing track, which was the LCU, and then the YWCA, which was going to be focused on employment and training. So throughout the years, the decades, the organization had upwards of 15 residences within Manhattan, housing hundreds of women each year. They could be there for a week, a month, a year, what have you. It was designed to really be a safe space for women to congregate and to live and to get home-cooked meals, get some nutrition, get some support from each other. So as you can imagine, that was a fantastic model for a lot of years, but by the time the 70s sort of rolled around, certainly the 80s, I think it was probably a model at that point in time that the organization recognized it was hard to adhere to. Whether or not sort of societal change, sort of women were looking for different sort of living kinds of constructs, if you will. And moreover, just the cost of maintaining sort of a brick and mortar operation like that with trying to maintain those kinds of residences was pretty challenging for the organization. So as I understand it, I was not here back then, they decided to start selling off the properties. And the last of our properties was sold in 2000. And that real estate transaction allowed us to create sort of corpus for a foundation. So we moved from being a public charity to a private grant-making foundation. And so in honor of our foremothers, it was sort of the recognition of housing as a sort of a gateway for opportunity for women. We maintained that as sort of the core focus of our work, but also aligned it with the impact of a college degree and recognizing the potential for women through higher education. And so our grant making now is really focused on, as I mentioned earlier, providing housing support for low-income scholars. We really are focused on uplifting change makers, so women that are making and have made a commitment to give back to their community through their professional pursuits, whether it be in the arts, social services, education, religious leadership, and public administration and health services. And so we're focused on women that have made that commitment, wanting to uplift them to make sure that they have the ability to get that all-important college degree and go out and make a difference in their communities. We currently grant about $1 million a year and serve 150 scholars. So we like to see ourselves as a small yet mighty organization here in New York City when we're alongside the Fords and the Rockefellers, right? But we're very direct, focused on the ground, doing our work. We have a direct connection with the scholars that we serve, and we partner with local colleges and universities to disperse the funds to the scholars who could use it the most. So that's what we do. We're all about housing as a means of social justice.
Well, it makes such a difference. I'm sure these women are all very grateful for all that you do. That's wonderful. All right, we'll go back to you, Elva. So, a woman of color from Harlem, why did you feel that you needed to make change in your neighborhood, and how did you play a part in that?
Well, for me, I felt, if not me, who, and if not now, when. And I think that's something that we as women take on all the time. Instead of waiting for someone else to do it, we have to do it ourselves. So we find ourselves in that position in so many instances, whether it's at home, whether it's at work. We know that it's up to us to really make the change that we'd like to see. And again, it was literally me complaining about the fact that, I'm going back to the early 2000s. There was a school down this particular block, and 114th Street was one of the most notorious drug blocks in Harlem. Whenever I'm in the room to keep it real. I'm never in the room to take up space, so excuse me for being so blunt, but that's how I deliver. And I was tired of it. I was sick and tired of it. I was sick and tired of watching kids go to school, and right next door to the school, them having to watch people shoot up, or them having to watch people take a hit of crack. And I was complaining about it to my sister one day, and she was like, so what are you gonna do about it? Good question. And I asked myself, what are you gonna do about it? And it was that same week that I was on the flight, and I heard the flight attendant say, in case of an emergency, put on your mask first. And I'd heard that so many times before. But on this day, it resonated with me. I'm like, okay, my sister's saying, what are you gonna do about it? And the flight attendant, I feel God speaking to me. Don't know if that was true or not, that was my interpretation. And so I literally started counting the money, and then I got scared because I didn't know it was that much money. And it took me almost 2 weeks to count. And then I'm walking down the street, and on the corner of that same block, there was a handwritten note in the window that said, for rent, call. And so I called. So opening up the restaurant was just to show people that there are other ways. It was mainly to show that this one little kid, Edwin, who used to freak me out, he would go and put his clothes in the dryer at 11 years old and maybe 60 pounds. And while the clothes were drying, he would go down that same block. And he would sell drugs. And that would break my heart. And I said, I have to do something. Invested the money in the neighborhood. Edwin then came to work with me, because no one works for me. Edwin came to work with me. Right now, I'm really proud to say that he worked with us as a dishwasher, the worst dishwasher I've ever had. I tell him that to this day. So I'm like, okay, we gotta get you out of the kitchen because you're breaking all my dishes and my plates and everything. And then he became a busboy. And then he became a stuntman. And he was like, wow, I could really do this. I could really make some good money. And, but his dream was to be a veterinarian. So now he's in the Army, and he's in school to be a veterinarian. Whenever he comes home, before he goes to see his mom and his family, he'll come by the restaurant to see if I'm there. And he's taking pictures, and he has on his uniform, and I couldn't be prouder.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I really opened up the restaurant, and that's when I knew I had to make a change in my community. Harlem has invested so much in me. Growing up there, I was born in Harlem Hospital. And if I came home from school and if I got a bad grade, before I made it to my building, and some of you know what I'm talking about, Miss Jones, girl, give me your hand. I get a little pop on the hand, or Mr. Smith, come over here, bring my nose. But Harlem, just like a lot of other places, was a neighborhood, it was a community. So it was a community that raised me. It's the community that birthed me, it's the community that taught me, it's the community that supported me. So I knew I had to do something. And even at this day, 18 years later, I still feel that I have so much more to do.
Yeah. Wow. How do you follow that? Kim, I do want to talk a little bit more about your business. I know that you have family to family and you have business to business services, right? So can you explain to us the differences
Between the two agencies.
between the two?
I was going to say, working with a family when I grew up, between a business that you own, the only difference was when you had a problem, you could say, Mom, Dad, fix this. Somehow we are Mom and Dad. But the two agencies are really, Inspire Marketing is all about consumer marketing. So we market brands to bring them to the direct consumer. The Enthuse agency is really business to business. So you in your restaurant industry, we would be marketing to you to say, we have all these brands that we support, whether they be beer, wine, spirits, and we bring that to you to help educate bar restaurant owners on how to bring those brands to consumers. So one's really B2B and one's really B2C. That's the differentiation. And the reason we did it was there was an opportunity. So a client came to us and said they had a new business proposal that they were looking to change the way they did business. And it was an opportunity for us to say, hey, this is a new market. There's an opportunity for us to do something different. My business partner at Enthuse is an educator. and we can create education programs. So we go into companies, like we come into Citron, and we would say, you need a better relationship with your employees, and here's how we can do that, and here's engagement programs. We teach businesses how to have better relationships with their own employees. And all of that's through the lens of marketing. So how they then talk on LinkedIn about the company, and all of that's really important. Now, when you work with a big organization like Diageo that sells Johnny Walker or Scotch, the person in finance doesn't know anything about Johnny Walker Scotch. So it's really important to come in and teach them about those brands, because they may be buying it for a home party and knowing that their company, like they're representing that company. So it's a unique spin on marketing, but not to the consumer, to either the employee or the business itself.
I must keep it interesting, mixing it up like that.
For sure, it's a new audience.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, let's go to Sarah. So, I'm sure some doors have closed, right? But let's focus on the positive. Can you talk to us about opportunities that have come your way?
I actually may challenge that statement a little bit. I think in some respects, for me, I can look back clearly on my career now. Of course, when you're in the middle of it, you don't necessarily have clarity. But in many respects, the doors that actually closed perhaps were the most influential or impactful in terms of sort of charting my course from a professional perspective. So that I think often about that. Sort of, I feel as if I always sort of land where I'm supposed to land, even though there may be some heartbreaks, along the way. I really wanted that job. Why didn't I get that job? And then I recognize that, maybe months later, a door that I didn't anticipate would open for me has opened for me. So I think a lot about sort of it's not destiny, but there's a little bit of a sort of a karmic aspect to my career, and so how it's, the ebbs and flows and the bends and all of that sort of makes sense now to me. And I'm hoping that as I continue on, I'll continue to have those experiences. But certainly in thinking about the opportunities that have been afforded to me, I certainly recognize the privilege that has been given to me, afforded to me by sort of our societal construct. I was able to go to college that was paid for by a grandmother. I've not been in a place where I've been concerned about where I'm going to get my next meal or where I'm going to lay my head that night. So I see those as just a real basic sort of privilege in walking through the world, and the opportunities that have been given to me. I think a lot about people who have paved the way. Not only those that have been in sort of positional authorities, the bosses, the managers along the way, recognizing that I feel, I've learned something from each of those people, whether it be how I want to lead or how I maybe don't want to lead. It's not unlike boyfriends of the past. I learned something from each of those relationships. But I also recognize that, there are people that you come into contact with that provided the opportunities that maybe aren't sort of there because of the relationship to work, but coworkers, co-conspirators, collaborators, people that you meet in the community that have been impactful and influential for me in sort of shaping the opportunities that I've had afforded to me. I don't think any of that made any sense, but I've been thinking a lot about it. It's funny that, I'm just going to say this as an aside, when you ask me about my work, and I'm not sure if this is a female thing, so forgive me guys in the room, I can talk for 24 hours about the work of the LCU Fund and the scholars that we serve and the impact that we have on their lives. But when you ask me to talk about me and my life, it's something that I haven't necessarily been asked to do. And I think as women, I think we sometimes are not given the opportunities to sort of uplift our own voices, share our stories. So this is an interesting experience for me. I'm often the one that is asking the questions and not answering them, so I'm struggling a little bit, but this is fantastic.
No, we very much appreciate it. And you can relate, Barbara. Yeah, absolutely can relate.
Mel, we'll return it to you. Now, I happen to know a lot about the restaurant and hospitality industry, being the co-practice leader at Citric Cooperman in the restaurant and hospitality practice. I know that most do have investors, partners, and do not. Is there a particular reason? Why is that?
Well, before I answer that, Stacey, and thank you, I just want to say, Sarah, we are family.
Yes,
You got all your sisters. So I just want to say that, right? I could have written that. It was a song. We are family. I just wanted to say that to you, girl. Okay. Why do I not have investors? Well, I have partners. And when I say partners, because everyone that works with me, they're my partner. I can't cook and do dishes and serve. I mean, I am good, but I cannot do every job at the same time. So that's why I always say people work with me and not for me. But, you know, a lot of people at that time didn't want to invest in a brown, big-eyed girl from Harlem that had a dream of opening up one of the top businesses that has a rate of failure.
Do they come after you now?
Break it one night.
Oh,
you know.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you know, not to toot my own horn, but it may have something to do with us just doing the U.S. Open, maybe?
Maybe.
You know, it may have something to do with Harry and Meghan
Maybe.
choosing to dine at Melba's after not having been on a date in 3 years. But I
Did you know that was at Melba's?
Yeah, Harry and Meghan had been on a date in 3 years, and he asked her where she wanted to go, any place in the world. She chose. So for someone who doesn't advertise, like I said, we put our advertising budget back into the community. Every time anybody walks in our doors, I am gratefully humbled and honored because we don't advertise. So, you know, whether it's the local, you know, we have people celebrating their first birthday or their 100th birthday. I'm always grateful. Everything else is gravy. Everything else is gravy. But no, I you know, started from the bottom. And back then, nobody did want to invest in, you know, we all know restaurants have the highest failure rate of any other business, right? So to be here for 18 years, when I got a call from Harris Blitzer Sports to partner with them, I'm an RFP for Woman Rink, the ice skating rink, I was shocked. It was related at Harris Blitzer Sports. And I'm like, why do they want me to partner in this space? But because they did call, I felt it was a great opportunity to ask for everything under the sun, all right? I think sometimes as women, we don't know our value. But I knew if these heavy hitters are calling me, I better ask for everything under the sun, and so I did. And I got everything under the sun. We have not because we asked not. Going forward into my Newark venture, which we're opening, I think, in October in the Prudential Center, but into my Newark venture, which is a $10.5 million venture. I have no more money in the mattress. And I will be taking partners, and I'm looking forward to having partners and or investors. I think that I've grown as much as I can on my own, and Drew Neaparent and Robert De Niro, I used to be partners with them years ago, and one of the things, I was there when the first Nobu opened, and now they're what, 55, 58 around the world. And I was talking with Drew, I'm like, okay, 55 Nobus, and there's gonna be 3 Novas. What's going on? He said it's all about the team. And he's right. And since Drew told me that, I've hired a CFO and a COO. I'm on payroll, I have ADP now. But it's just when you have a baby, something that you've birthed, and something that no one else could see but you, sometimes it's hard to let it go a little bit, right? It's hard to send them off to college. It's hard to send them to boarding school. And I finally took a risk. And girl, can I tell you, I am enjoying my life since I took that risk. But I was so afraid of losing something that I'd worked so hard. And it's not a loss, it's a gain. Because I'm now better to operate, to be a better owner, to be a better operator, to be a better boss, to be a better partner in my business. And when I say partner again, you know, just working alongside with my team because I'm not putting in 90 to 110 hours a week anymore.
Good for you. Kim, so I know that you empower women in your business, so can you just explain to the group how you go about doing that?
Sure. I think it's no different than what you were just talking about. It's giving opportunities and bringing them in and giving those a leadership role. And I said the Enthuse agency, Enthuse Marketing, has 100% women in leadership. So we're not just, oh, we have a figurehead and everything else just runs as it is. Everyone that's running our marketing team is women. We have our creative leadership, our account leadership. All the Ephesians are in the room, so I'm like pointing at them. But giving them that opportunity to say, what do you want to make of this? So when they come with ideas, we're working together as a team, and that's so important. The culture that you build is like giving those opportunities that they may not have thought they could have somewhere else, and sharing those ideas with the leadership team and letting that spawn things about the entire organization. And when you do that, magic happens, right? Like you're saying, okay, let's just try it. Like what's gonna fail? You have an idea that you wanna create an internal pitch competition for our employees instead of the women-owned business, and to see employees rally around these ideas and then just like, let's do it, let's make it a thing. That sparks something within those team members, and they just flourish. Our first employee is still working with us, and that's really, really important to continue to keep fueling their ambitions and their passions, and not pinching them into like, you started here and let me move up on this this chart, just like your dishwasher busboy. Like people have moved into new roles, and it's like I keep saying, you give opportunities and step back, give them guidelines and paths, but don't manage. And it's really been worthwhile because to see the team flourish has been exciting.
Is it your bio that I read, and when things don't go right, turn
Turn
left?
left.
I absolutely love that statement. It's simple, but it says so much. It says so much.
I'm at the Inspire agency. I'm chief possibilities officer. So
I love that.
Jeff comes up with crazy ideas. I'm like, let's figure out what's possible. And, but it's just looking at the world in a way that it's not about what's in front of you and how do you do it. It's like, where do we get to the next step and the next step and the next step? And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I did all this stuff. And I think sometimes we often put ourselves into that, what you were sharing, of limitations. Mm-hmm. I can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that. And it's like, if you think about it, just switch that word to we can, or what we know. There's no and O, it's always a K and O W. But when you look at it, when you look at an issue or a challenge, and that's why I said I love meeting a new client, because all of the things that are challenges in my head, I'm just like, okay, well, how do we fix that? How do we fix that? What are your KPIs? How do you get gold? How do you get bonus? And all of that stuff is just energy, because I'm just trying to figure out a path that might get one step closer to where they're going and helping that. But teaching your teams to do that is really fulfilling. But that's the opportunity. A team member came to us one day and said, oh, we do a lot of logistics. Like we do a lot of shipping, we bring event sets, and when it just goes into a storage unit, like a warehouse that isn't ours. Because if we had our own warehouse, we would be able to bill for that and make money and store claims, materials, and then have our own logistics. And we're like, okay. And it was that moment of what my dad did for me, like, I don't think that's what he expected, but it was like, go do it. And those are the things that people enjoy about working with our both of our agencies, is there's always an opportunity on the horizon, and there's no, this is the way we have to do it.
It so much resonates with me when I've coached other women in the firm when we talk about business development, and you know, a lot of people say, I don't have the time, I'm busy working, and let's face it, we're accountants, it's not the sexiest industry in the world. But what I have said is, when you get a new client, it's like a high.
Yeah.
It's like a high, because already you start to think how you can help them and develop a relationship, a long-term relationship at that. And it's so exhilarating, and it's so worth your time. So I so understand what you're saying. Sarah, we all talk about work-life balance. Okay, it's like the buzzword of the day, right? So how do you find time? How do you carve personal time out? What's your secret? Do you have one?
So I'm going to try my best to avoid too many cliches in answering that question. I really believe that one should lean into their passions and carve out time to pursue those passions, and find their tribe, build community for yourself. And I said that it wasn't going to be too cliches, and I keep calling some cliches. No, it's an interesting, because I think on paper it looks like it's a really easy task, but I think the reality is it's immensely challenging, especially for women who may be raising children alongside their partners, working full-time, contributing to their community. I mean, all of that stuff. But for me personally, I am a vocalist, and I have a working band, so that's my side hustle. I can sing to thousands of people, but now for some reason, when it's this small group of people looking at me,
ask you to
it's
do
funny. But to be honest, that to me, pursuing sort of my musical passion has been really critical in making me a better employee, clarifying my sort of professional pursuits. Just for whatever reason, when you're able to sort of right brain, left brain, what have you, sort of if you sort of looking at ways to sort of build yourself up from a holistic perspective, if that makes any sense. But I really honestly believe that through the work that I'm doing on my side hustle with the music, I'm part of that community, and that to me is, for me, the main ingredient for having that balance, and recognizing that as you move through life, there are going to be times when you're going to be off balance, and you know that, and to give yourself a little bit of a break and recalibrate, because life, you do that to you. But yeah, I think that again for me, sort of leaning into your passion, carving that time for yourself to pursue that, I think is really critical. I will also say that the sweet spot is if you actually can get paid to do something you love, if your professional pursuits align with your internal compass, if that makes sense, that's the way to go.
I always say you have to love what you do and do what you love.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to throw a curveball to the other two and ask you the exact same question.
Oh, okay. I refrain from saying work-life balance. I say integration, because I think it's all about fulfillment. So if you're living a fulfilling life at home, you can do that at work, and it doesn't have to, like, I think, again, we put that stress, like, what is balance, and what does that mean, and the hours that I put, and if you take that all away and remove it and just say, am I fulfilled at home? Am I fulfilled at work? Yay! And celebrate that, and know that when you can do that and it's routine, like I used to leave the office every day at 2 to go pick up my daughter, and I made that time to spend with her, whether it was that 1 hour of time. It wasn't to me like balancing the time of how many hours I'm in the office and how many hours I'm at home. It was really just like those were moments that I could put myself in. When she was younger, I would be on playground duty, and I carved out that, I scheduled it like a meeting and just put that in my schedule, and that routine really helped me to feel like I was never missing out. And so I always say, don't strive for this balance, because I feel like you're always in tension with that of, well, I didn't do this or I didn't do that, and then putting more stress on yourself. So I feel it's more about how do you integrate both and create these routines, and to make that what you're looking at, and look at your life as where the fulfillment comes in.
Wow. So someone sent, during COVID, someone sent a text to me, and I'm sure a lot of you in this room saw it. It talked about us as women taking off our super women cape. Did anybody else receive that, a post or text? Oh, I'm the only one who got that, okay.
No, like,
Well, it was a text that really resonated with me. Because I think oftentimes as women, we're told, we're too loud, we're too muted, we're too aggressive, we're too passive, we're too pretty, we're not pretty enough, we're too educated, we're not educated enough. And so, even though we have all the experience, and we have more than what it takes, oftentimes we walk in a room and just because we're women, we're often told that we're not enough. So for me, it was about making time for me. And as Oprah, who I call Okra because I'm in the food industry, once said, we have to put us on our schedule. We do have to carve out time for us. And we have to be okay with that. It was also me learning the power of a big 2-letter word. What's that word? No. What I learned is no is a complete sentence. It does not require an explanation. It is simply no. Can I just tell you that I lost 20 pounds when I figured that out? No, not literally. I like my curves. But once I figured out the power of the word, that gave me the fuel that I needed. And when I was comfortable with saying no. So I eliminated that other 4-letter word that begins with an F. No, not that one. Fear. Those are things that empowered me and things that know me that it's not impossible. Like you said with the word no, it's impossible. Sometimes you just have to change the phrasing and change the wording around. It's interesting because I've been the president of the Hospitality Alliance for, since 2019. I was just reelected even though I didn't run. Doug Stacy, I'm sorry. And this is an industry that typically doesn't celebrate women, doesn't celebrate people that look like me, okay, women of any color. And so just being comfortable in my skin and knowing that we are enough. We are enough. And we can say no. And no one's gonna make us feel bad about it. That's what changed my life.
You actually took my next question, because I do want to talk. No, I'm still asking it, don't worry. Because I do know enough about the industry to know that it's male dominated. Whether it's a chef, whether it's a restaurant owner, you are not male. How is that for you?
It's the best damn thing that ever happened. Again, looking at things that people see as liabilities are assets. Those are the reasons that give me the power, that give me the strength, that when I walk into the room, I am different. But I'm comfortable with being different because I'm me. I am me. And I can be a better me than a better anybody else on any given day. So what I look at and I focus on are the greatness, the great things that I have. The fact that, yes, I am from Harlem. It makes me bigger, badder, and bolder. I can say things that people only think about saying. Yep, because I'm from Harlem. It's an asset, it's not a liability. But once we as women understand that me being able to hablo español, it's not a liability. Ask Sophia, it's an asset. And leaning into the things that people see as liabilities, my skin color, my hair texture, those are assets. Those are things that make me beautiful. Those are things that allow us to stand out. And not letting anybody else tell us anything different. So, believing in who we are, standing up for who we are, being true and comfortable with who we are. are the things that have helped me on a daily basis to get through, around, over, and under this industry.
That's great. Kim, I think you alluded to having a mentor.
Yes.
And I think most of us could say that we've had mentors. So why do you think that was so important for you?
I think it's important to know how to utilize a mentor too. So I have what I call the 3 C's. One is a coach, so the one that pushes you when maybe you're given up or finished for the day. The counselor, the one that just listens and you can put your feet up. And then there's the cheerleader, so the 3 C's. The cheerleader just gives you the rah-rah and keep going, keep going, keep going, or just that motivation that sometimes you have a bad day and you need someone to bring you up. But I think oftentimes when we talk, especially with the new founders, these new companies, they're afraid to be vulnerable and share maybe their numbers are off or they don't know finance because they think they have to do it all. So we are very pressed to say, get mentors. People call them on the phone. Come to our foundation meetings. We will connect you with a mentor. And don't expect the mentor to do the work for you. That often is an education we have to do as well, because these mentors are giving you whether an experience share or something that they went through, not answers. And so it's really how to use mentors as well. And that was a big flip for me too, because it was like I would call people like, okay, so what should I do? And you're like, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I'm gonna tell you, here's some things to think about. And then I was like, that's what a mentor is. And I think teaching people how to use mentors and where to find them is important. And anybody of us, we can all be mentors to each other. I think too, I have to find someone and the exact thing that I want to do, or I want to, and it's like, no, call your old teacher, and really seeing their eyes light up. And then when you connect people together that you know can help, it's the magical too, to see that businesses grow and flourish. And so it's the one part of being vulnerable to like share what's going on, and then also understanding that the conversation is not going to be telling you what to do. It's really just going to be advice.
And it's okay to ask for help.
Yes, yeah.
That's okay. Sarah, now, basically day to day, you're helping other people through their challenges, and they all have challenges. What about your challenges? Can you talk about some of them along the way?
How much time? No, I think that I'll speak sort of to some of the organizational challenges, right? So we are a remote organization, and actually we have been since 2011, so pre-COVID. When COVID hit, it wasn't a heavy lift because we also knew how to do this remote thing. And the reason why we are a remote organization and why we made that strategic decision to give up our offices is that I'm the sole employee. We have a 19-member volunteer board of directors. And so I would schlep into the city 2 hours from the Hudson Valley and sit there in an office alone, emailing the board members. So we realized that we could use those dollars more impactfully to put those into our grant making and fund a whole other institution. But with that comes challenges in that, as I mentioned earlier, I think the key to work-life balance, if you will, obviously, is sort of finding your passion, finding community. I recognize that the folks that volunteer their time to serve on the LCU Funds Board of Directors are there because they believe in the mission and the purpose of the work, but moreover, they're volunteering their time because they want to be part of a community, be engaged with other like-minded folks. And there is a little bit of a barrier to doing that when you have board meetings via Zoom, right? So the challenge for me from a professional perspective is being intentional about crafting time for our board members and for myself in conjunction with the board to come together in community, to get to know one another as part of that team, right? I would also say that as the executive director, it's a great job, it's a great gig. I would recommend it to anyone. The reality is that I too have to create a professional community for myself. I interact with the board often, but there is a dynamic between the board and staff that you have to be sort of cognizant of. And so I've had to also be intentional about seeking out peers from other funding organizations within the philanthropic community that become, whether they be the coach, the cheerleader, the counselor, to find that professional community for myself, so that you're not so isolated, which I think at times working remotely can lend itself to. So I think, thinking about the challenges that, the work that we do, it's straightforward, focused grant making. Obviously, it's connected, as I mentioned earlier. I think that housing, again, is a social justice issue. There's an equity issue, there's a mobility issue related to it. But what we do is very focused. So the gymnastics of the job, it's a pretty well-oiled machine, I'll just say that. But it's all sort of that other stuff, sort of feeling as if you're working in partnership with that broader community, that you're a connection. So looking at ways to create that within this virtual world, I think is a challenge that we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah. Well, we're at 10 o'clock now. I'm going to ask one last question before we open it up to some Q&A, which is what's next for each of you?
Go for it, girl.
Well, I have Melba's Skinny Cocktail that just came out, so I'm super excited about that. I have a hot sauce and barbecue sauce, and opening up in Grand Central in February, which I'm super duper excited about. And October, as I mentioned, opening up at the Prudential Center. So that's what's on the horizon. And I'm a mom to a 23-year-old son who I'm just in love with. And my board work. I sit on the board of City Harvest. I sit on the board of God's Love We Deliver, NYC & Co., and again, president of the New York City Hospitality Alliance. But the most important thing is contributing and creating economic empowerment of my community.
Always work to do there.
Yeah, and I think for my next, I think Melba's on my board. That's a strong one, Rachel. That's the big thing for us, is really putting more emphasis on the foundation. Right now, the agency is funding all of its efforts, so we do not have a true board that's out fundraising. So putting efforts behind fundraising, getting a true board of directors that can help us go out there and do more. We've done so much that we're so proud of in the little bit of investment we've had, so we know that we can double, triple. And the big mission that we have is really funding. So women-owned companies is less than 2% of NEPC. So by 2030, that number was supposed to be 20%, and it's not even close. It just keeps bouncing around that 2% number. When you look at women of color, even further in the minority, it's 0.0%. So really making change there. We know this foundation can make a difference because we see the companies coming in, we see the amazing businesses that are coming through, and we want to do more to help them. So that board and really truly pushing that forward is where I'm going to spend my time.
So I believe in being a lifelong learner. I recognize that I'm constantly evolving. Who I was yesterday is not necessarily who I am today. So with that in mind, I'm currently pursuing becoming a chartered advisor in philanthropy, and my goal is to be of service to the philanthropic sector. I tend to nerd out on things just as you described: love governance issues, policy development, practice formulation, all of that good stuff. So I'm hoping to do more of that, whether it be in a consultative capacity or what have you. I too serve on a couple of boards. I'm on the New York Council of Nonprofits, and I also serve on the board of a local youth serving organization in my community called the My Goal Foundation, and I really would like to continue to do that. I feel, frankly, that maybe within the last 5 years, I feel like I've grown up a little bit. I no longer have that daily, sort of the imposter syndrome, sort of wondering if I'm actually good enough, or waiting for the shoe to drop. They're really going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm finally at a place now where I feel as if I can contribute meaningfully to my community and my professional sector. So those are sort of, that's what am I next.
Well, what amazing women. I think a round of applause.
I don't know about you,
We are going to open it up to some Q&A. If anyone has any questions, please just raise your hand. Jenny?
What advice, first of all, thank you. I mean, the stories are remarkable, very inspiring. What advice would you give to your young self?
Anyone or all or
All?
all or any?
Take every moment as an opportunity to learn something. I think you made a comment that resonated with me of a closed door. Sometimes we just like, oh, it wasn't for me. And a closed door for me was not getting a job, but that led me to another job that got me where I was. So I was really, really upset, and I really took it hard, and I was like, I'm not gonna be good at this industry, and I'm just gonna give up. And I think sometimes that negative, something else is around the corner, and if you can keep that positive attitude going of, there's a reason that I didn't get this, or there's a reason this client didn't come through, or whatever those things are, because something else is gonna be around the door. And I think I didn't have that until now of like, I'm not gonna get really down about this no or negative thing that's happening, because I need to like put energy somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on that and say the same thing. I remember I had an amazing opportunity with the late, but great Artie Cutler, who started Carmine's and Ollie's and Doc's and EJ's. And we spent 18 months traveling around doing what we called a barbecue safari, on and off for 18 months. Artie showed me a bunch of places, and it's a place on 44th Street that used to be called the China Bowl. And I said, Artie, that's where we're gonna put our barbecue restaurant. Young and dumb. Didn't know, Melba, sign your contract before you spend 18 months on a project. I got the contract, and a part of the contract said that they would own my name. And I was young and dumb, but I knew you can't own my name. So I walked away from the project. And it's now Virgil's. It was one of my best friends, Jeff Banks. And I was devastated. I remember walking home from the Millennium Hotel, which is where we were meeting at that time. And I walked through Central Park, and I had tears in my eyes. And I was like, God, why didn't you bring me all the way here just to have this happen? And what I now have come to realize that had I not spent that 18 months with these guys, I would not have been prepared for Melba's. So everything is not a stumbling block, it's a stepping stone. And when you're in the midst of it, you don't understand that sometimes. And when you're younger, you don't understand that. But I now know that when God closes a door, it's because he's gonna open a window.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's some truth to that. Man, I think about my younger self and how I think I would probably tell myself to listen more, ask questions. I feel as if I had sort of this strange combination of arrogance and insecurity. And I wish that I had the comfort that I do now in sort of walking through the world with this body and this face and this voice and this, all of that. It's sort of like what you were talking about, sort of always to something, right? I wish that I sort of could own my personhood a little bit more, but I'm not sure if I'd actually, other than maybe just tell little Sarah that, it's gonna be okay. Because I think that part of the journey is sort of that evolution, right? Because I didn't listen when I was 14, 15, 16, it doesn't really matter what I would have told myself, because I wouldn't have listened to it anyway. I just think something you said there. So I think I would just say it's going to be okay, and things work out the way, in many respects, that they should. And I just sort of feel like I don't know, I'm going to stop right there.
Any other, yes.
Thank you all so much for your time. Melba, this question is for you. From the hospitality, putting your hospitality hat on, especially with the pandemic in this city. And so I feel like there's been a lot of roses and marshmallows and flowers that we've talked about here. But can you tell us a little bit about those challenges specifically that you saw with your business and what you guys are talking about from the Hospitality Alliance, and how do you really help businesses kind of rebuild, especially from the hospitality perspective?
Sure. Thank you for that question. You know, the hospitality industry is oftentimes the first place that people go when they're 14 years old and they get their working papers. Can't get a job anywhere else, you show up at our door, we give you an opportunity. When people want gift certificates or a dinner for two for their schools, right, fundraiser, they come to the restaurant industry. We are in the industry of taking care of people, and it's because we get great joy in doing so. However, to your point, during the pandemic, we needed to be taken care of. I remember the day like it was yesterday. It was March 15th, and we got the call. And I was like, New York City's not going to shut down. New York City's so nice, they named it twice. It's New York, New York. How naive, right? You know, we're the 24-hour city, 7 days a week, we never close. That day was very devastating for me, for my industry. The hospitality industry, I don't think people realize this, we are the second largest private industry in the world, literally in the world. Truck drivers that deliver goods, farmers, vineyards, paper good companies, and so on and so on. It was the day that the world stopped. And for me personally, it was, I had 39 employees at the time. How are they going to feed their families? How long is this going to last? Is it going to be 1 week? We had no answers. I'm the queen of answers. My team knows they can come to me for anything, and I would figure it out. This one, I couldn't figure out. And it devastated me, not for me, but for the 31 people that worked with me. The New York City Hospitality Alliance, we came together, we talked, what are we going to do? I talked with my team. What should we do? Because it's never about me, it's about we. So collectively, we decided not to close the doors. If we can only do takeout, let's only do takeout. Some of us working is better than no one working. And so we went from being open from 5 to 11, 6 days a week, to opening 12 hours so that we can keep more people employed. We opened for 12 hours, we opened 7 days a week, it was only takeout, and then 60 Minutes called, and they wanted to do, they were doing a special on Danny Meyer, Shake Shack. You guys know Danny Meyer, right? He's a Union Square Cafe. And they said, no, but we're gonna do a little snippet on you. Well, the snippet turned into the majority of the space of the time taken up being about the restaurant, because we're relatable. You know, not many people in the industry, I love Danny, but there aren't many Danny Meyers in the world. In our industry, there are more people that are mom and pop like me. But what that enabled us to do, that 60-minute special, was to, people started sending in checks. We started giving those checks to hospitals, being able to feed people from our community, because that's all we want to do. We want to take care of people. That's how I get my joy. My joy doesn't come from me being able to do this or do that. It comes from me being able to take care of people that I love and the people in our community. That's hospitality. It broke my heart because there's so many businesses that are landmarks in this city that close their doors, never to reopen again. Collectively, what we do at the Hospitality Alliance is we support one another. We've come up with initiatives, with funding. We've just started a not-for-profit. But we are one of the most giving industries in our communities. And we're the fabric within the communities. So make sure you support your local small business, especially your restaurants. Okay, and if you can order directly through them instead of going to Grubhub or Uber Eats, please do so, because third-party billing is about 30%. Okay? What do I mean by that? If you order an order for, let's say $100, there's gonna be a $30 charge that's broken down, and that goes to the third party, okay, delivery app. So if you can order directly from your restaurant or go in and pick it up, please do so. But I do wanna say thank you, because I know that all of you in this room have played a huge part in keeping us vibrant and keeping us going in this communities, in your own community. So thank you so much for that.
Yes.
What is your favorite podcast by you?
Ready? How I built this? I got Riz. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I'm all about Dax Shepard and Armchair Expert. Seriously.
Love that guy too. What about you, Melba?
I was very long-winded. Don't feel that. Material to you guys. I'm more of a book reader. I read books. Growing up in Harlem, books allowed me to escape and to be transported. So I still like reading a book. I'm not a Kindle girl. I'm not big on podcasts.
Yeah, you
I'm
like
sorry.
that.
Yeah, I like reading it when you turn the pages. So.
So what's on your bedside table?
They won't give you up.
Well, what I'm reading now is Yes, Chef by Marcus Samuelson, one of my very good friends.
Yes. So there's so much I could ask about that $300,000 cash. But that's a podcast. There you go.
Or another book.
But I do understand what Spooky you must have faced in the early stages of your career, really with all of you, like really starting a business as an accountant that really service that space where you work with small business owners, like see the struggles that they face. So quick question is, what's one lesson that you've learned? It could have been a hard lesson deciding to work for yourselves as starting out as small business owners that you learned, like one lesson that you can share with us today.
I think this is really important.
I will say, it was very hard because, as you said, as a business owner, every dollar that comes into, you're very thoughtful on who you hire and when you hire and all of those things. So we have to make sure that our team is always an orchestra, right? They're all working together, and every day it's the chef creating those magical meals. But when you have someone that's not on board with your vision, but they're driving business, there's something that really goes through your head, like, wow, they're bringing in revenue, they're hurting the culture. What do I do? And it's hard as a business owner because you're seeing the number, and then you look at your team and you see the dynamics and the culture being crushed, right? And so you have to make that decision. And we had to make that decision a couple of times. And even on the client side too, a client was crushing our team. So it's like, we can't work with this client. Their business isn't worth it, and you have to make that decision, and that's really, really hard. The lesson learned, though, was to do it as fast as possible. Because the longer it happens, your team starts to question your leadership. And when you bring in a client, then they're like, well, what other kind of clients are they going to bring in? And all of a sudden, that just really, really hurts. So I think, yes, we had to make those decisions. We did, and we were happy when we did them. But if we could have done it faster, it would have been a better outcome. So, yeah. But yeah.
I've learned OPM, other people's money. You should never use your hard-earned money, and you being an accountant, I'm sure you totally agree with me. And it's so funny because De Niro Bob used to always say, no, but OPM, what's OPM? OPB? Other people's money. When I did use my money, there was a big situation in front of the restaurant where the city needed to dig up from the ground. So when you sat in the restaurant or before you walked in, there was a big pile of brown debris. And when you're eating, you don't want to see that. I spent up most of my $312,000 and didn't have a reserve. A lot of small businesses, and I'm sure you guys know that in this industry, we start out underfunded. We're totally underfunded. totally underfunded. And I did look at the mattress, but there was no more money there. So OPM, you know, totally. Investors, partners, go to a bank and get a loan, but yeah, rainy day funds, yeah.
Sarah, anything?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually if my industry necessarily applies because we definitely are blessed, you know, from I think the sort of progressive nature of our foremothers, the fact that they did what they did allows us to operate off of our investment income. And so every day, all day, it's OPM for me.
I wish we were related.
Any other, yes?
A quick one, Melba, I wanted to ask you, I know you said y'all won't spend any money on advertising, but you're reinvesting in the community. Are there anything specifically that you're doing in the community? I mean, I know there's a lot, but.
Yeah, well, food insecurity is a big deal for me. So we're always feeding people in the community, a lot of seniors. I'm huge on senior centers. When there's voting, we're always out there giving out sandwiches and water and stuff like that. There was recently a young lady who lost her life, and her father couldn't pay for the funeral. So we do stuff like that. 250 people. We give a lot to WARM. Women deal with domestic violence, a lot with the Girl Scouts. It goes on and on and on. We literally give away a little bit, close to about $500,000 a year in services, checks, or space. Yeah.
We'll take one more question. Yes.
Okay, Kim, you talked about creating routines and, you know, carving out time for yourself and discussing work-life balance, but I'm kind of curious to know, you know, what daily routines do you ladies follow to help maintain like focus and motivation?
One of them is I get up at the same time every day. I don't have an alarm clock. I'm just up at 6:30 every single day. And today I had to get up a little earlier. But having that just like mentally, and then knowing what I want to be in the office at this time, and having that what I called blocks of time, and scheduling it in your calendar. So there'll be meetings that are not really meetings. They're pick up my daughter, like, and if you do that, all of a sudden you just become, it becomes part of who you are, and you just know that that's your day. There's also, if you look at Steve Jobs, he always wore the same, so he took decision out of his life. He ate the same thing every day, wore the same clothes, and that was the routine that he had. I don't do that. I wear different clothes, I eat different things. But knowing that the things that you can take out of your life, it makes it easy, it takes time away from you. And I think that was a lesson too. I was like, oh, what things can I just remove from a decision that gives you more brain power? So that's what routine means too, of like just taking things out that you don't have to think about. Whether that's, these are my clothes for the day, this is what time I'm getting up, and just, you know that that's part of your day.
Well, again, I thank you all. This has been wonderful, and I thank all of you for coming, and hopefully you'll walk away with a little bit of inspiration from all of that you've heard today.